Our first discussion tonight. On a day when India celebrates National Mathematics Day, we talk about two very interesting statements. One made by the new Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister, the other by ISRO Chief S. Somnath. Let's first talk about Dr. Mohan Yadav, the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister, who has suggested that his government will work to shift the Prime Meridian from Greenwich to Ujjain. Now let's go back in time a bit. In fact, go back to school a bit, where we were taught that Prime Meridian is the line of longitude that is used as the global reference for time at Greenwich in England. Now, the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister said it is his way of countering rampant westernization. He said, and I quote, "It was that is Ujjain's time that was known in the world, but Paris started to set the time, and later it was adopted by the British, who considered Greenwich the Prime Meridian." Now remember, the 1884 Convention on Meridians accepted the longitude passing through Greenwich as the zero meridian or the Prime Meridian. The Indian Standard Time, or IST, is 5.5 hours ahead of the Greenwich Meridian Time, or GMT. It is currently calculated from Mirzapur in Uttar Pradesh. Dr. Mohan Yadav referenced his argument to an ancient astronomical belief that Ujjain was once considered India's central meridian and that the city determined the country's time zones and time differences. It is also the basis of time in the Hindu calendar. Now, as the belief goes, Ujjain is located at the precise point of interaction with the zero meridian and the Tropic of Cancer. It is also the location of what is India's oldest observatory, built by Savai Jai Singh II of Jaipur in the early 18th century. So how much weight does this claim by the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister really hold? To help us understand better, I'm joined by Pranav Sharma. He's an astronomer and a space historian. Let's get a better perspective from him on this. Pranav Sharma, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us on Mirror Now. Let me first ask you whether this claim by the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister holds any weight. Does Ujjain really has that location where we can draw a line from there and calculate time as in the entire world like we do it from Greenwich right now?
There's a perspective on it. There is a historical importance of the city Ujjain, to which the Vedic name Avanti was there for the longest time. But to answer the question short, it would be very difficult to actually shift the Prime Meridian to Ujjain. The historical context is that in the 4th or the 5th century text of Surya Siddhant, which was written by Aryabhat's student Lata Dev, describes Avanti as one of the places where the Prime Meridian passes, which is a central point wherein the line that passes from the Mount Meru or the Meru Parvat, which crosses the city of Kurukshetra and passes through Avanti and then goes through Lanka, which is close to the equator. And that way, for the longest time, it was believed that Ujjain is the Prime Meridian as far as the Indian texts are concerned. The history of the Prime Meridians of the world goes from right, left, and center. There was a time in some naval maps, even much before Greenwich was accepted as the Prime Meridian, which was basically because the naval almanacs were made out of the Greenwich Observatory, and the entire naval observations and the movements that navies across during that era, 18th and 19th century used, were based out of the Greenwich nautical almanac, which used Greenwich observations, made Greenwich the Prime Meridian for the entire calculations, much before the Paris Meridian was discussed. Having said that, there were different times when different places, even Kyoto was considered as Prime Meridian, Mecca was considered as Prime Meridian, but that depends on the localization of text on which the text describes the place as Prime Meridian. Uh, uh, Going further on that, yes, you were right in saying that in 1884, in the Washington Convention of the Prime Meridian discussion that was held, Greenwich was still accepted as the Prime Meridian as far as the world systems are concerned. The French were reluctant until the 1911. They accepted it much later on. But there was a much later development in the 20th century, where in 1973 a conference was held by the International Time Bureau and the International Earth Rotation and Reference System in 1984, wherein it was accepted because science had furthered much ahead than the optical observations which were used to understand how the prime meridian works. Prime meridian is the zero line which is considered to split the system in half. So what the scientists much later
Pranav,
in the
help me
80s
understand this.
had said that, what one...
Yeah, how did this consensus come about on this particular Greenwich being considered as the prime meridian? Yes, the geographical location is there, but when you had such different time zones in different countries, where the sunrise and the sunset differs with each region, so to say, how did this consensus really come about? Or was it, something that the Western thought, that the Western scientific process had captured much before this part of the world could actually, put forth its own suggestions?
Yes, you're right, Shreya. There's a colonial politics to it. There's no doubt about it. But then, but the alternate argument is there that, when the laser observations with the moon were done, the lunar observations were done in 74, and then in 84 when the International Earth Rotation and Reference System was adopted, the Greenwich mean line was shifted. So the standard is not Greenwich, it's potato rather. It's about 105 meters from the Greenwich Observatory, the Greenwich mean line, which is the IRS line, which is the international standard line on which the international date line is established. And this reference system, which is also the terrestrial reference system, the terrestrial frame reference system, which is adopted in the 80s, on which the entire GPS is based. So now shifting from that would be difficult, because now you have to sit down and convince the entire international community to change the entire GPS system. I'm not saying that you can't do that, but I'm saying it will be very difficult.
Okay. Pranav, also let me quickly then ask you that, before...
The logic in the 80s, the logic in the 80s was that let's not use the Greenwich as a standard point, but what we rather do is that let's pass the plane of split by the center of mass of the Earth. So center of mass is the place where, one can believe that the entire mass is concentrated, and if you touch it, the entire body seems to behave in a linear fashion. So they split it, but then it still, it somehow still passed very close to Greenwich.
Okay. Let me also then ask you, Pranav, just as the United States has...
As far as the Indian texts are concerned, Hello?
Just that United States has different time zones. India, and you may correct me if I'm wrong, before 1906, had 3 time zones. They were, in different regions, Bombay, Calcutta, and the Madras time, and then, of course, it changed. But what is stopping us from having that right now? Of course, there needs to be one standardized time, but from the north to the south, from the east to the west, there are different times of sunrise and sunset. And it's not just about having different time zones. It also saves us a lot of our economic concerns, doesn't it? For example, if I quote the National Institute of Advanced Studies, they say that having
It
two
does.
time zones in India would result in saving 2.7 billion units of electricity annually. And that's just one sector where we'll be saving from. What is stopping us from doing that?
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. There was an argument where they was also saying to split India across 3 time zones, +5, +6, and +7. See, it's like this. If there's, say, 4 a.m. in Assam, and at the same time, if there's a sunrise at 4 a.m. in Assam, the sunrise in Delhi is at 5:30. And the sunrise in Gujarat is at about 6:25, 6:20 or something, around that time. The difference, because it's about 3,000 miles. It's huge. And for the longest time, early in the 20th century, you're right, the Indian railway standard time changed much later. The standard time, of course, in Mirzapur came, and that this railway time was a different time. Even when the standard time was adopted, Calcutta time was a different time. And you're right, just to save energy, to name the least of the variables, having at least 2 time zones will solve a lot of problems for us. Because by the time, say the Northeast finishes half of the day's work, we are still in the morning in Delhi.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we'll have to see how
And
this really
Gujarat
pans
hasn't
out. But you're
started yet.
saying that this claim by the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister isn't wrong technically, but its implementation could be a big challenge at this point in time.
Absolutely. Because it's the international standards have
Okay.
been accepted. And to change the international standard, you need a consensus from the international community, whether they'll accept the challenge, and then once they accept the logic of the challenge, and then they accept the challenge itself, and then they agree to implement the challenge, and they adhere by it. It's a very
But I think that's where the
diplomatic
challenge lies,
process.
Pranav. We have to
And if you
decolonize a
want to
lot of
take on that
things,
project, you're more than
including
welcome to.
time. Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course, I agree
It
with
probably
you.
is an uphill
I
task,
completely
but the
agree with you.
decolonization is
I mean,
required.
the elements
Okay.
in our daily lifestyle,
Yeah.
especially in colonial countries, in former colonies, it's
Yeah.
absolutely brutal. I mean, look at you and me talking in English.
Yeah, yeah.
That is a colonial,
Yeah, just the
expression,
very
because the
fact. Yeah,
entire
yeah,
nation, if nothing else, they would understand English as a language. So you're right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not the time debate. It's a
Okay.
decolonization debate. You're absolutely correct on it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is, a long drawn battle
But
that
yes, the
all of
Madhya
us
Pradesh
have to
chief
fight,
minister
but it
has
is
a
something that is
textual.
needed.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But I would
Pranav, I
again
request you
reiterate
to
on the
stay
fact
with
that
us.
the Madhya Pradesh chief minister.
Yeah. Pranav, I'll request you to stay with us as I also get you something else, an interesting, statement that has come from the ISRO chief. Remember now, they say that sometimes not getting what you want is God's blessing. In India's quest for space exploration, every time we try to move further and achieve higher, there are some who have a problem. From New York Times putting out that cartoon dissing India's Mangalyaan mission back in 2014 to 2023, where the ISRO chairperson S. Somnath revealed that no country is willing to help India out to build the life support system in Gaganyaan. Now, India has been time and again discouraged by the world, but do we get discouraged? Clearly not. ISRO is now building an indigenous life support system for its first manned mission, Gaganyaan. Basically, the Indian Space Research Organization will independently develop what is called the Environmental Control and Life Support System, or the ECLSS, for the Gaganyaan mission. This ECLSS manages the air quality and the water supply that is essential for the survival of astronauts in the challenging environment of space. Through meticulous mechanisms like activated charcoal beds, catalytic oxidizers, and molecular sieves, the system regulates cabin air quality, basically ensuring a breathable atmosphere for the crew members. The oxygen generation system in it separates water molecules into oxygen and hydrogen gas, ensuring a constant oxygen supply for breathing while generating moisture. Now, if ISRO is able to do this, it will be a massive achievement for the Indian space narrative. But what are the challenges it faces? What does it mean for the Indian space narrative if ISRO is building its own life support system for Gaganyaan? Let's get more perspective on this. I'm joined by Manish Purohit. He's a former ISRO scientist, and Pranav Sharma continues to be with us. He's an astronomer and space historian. Manish, I'd like to start with you. Just the fact that India is now building its own life support system, it's basically a DIY project for the Indian Space Research Organization. How capable are we to build it? What are its, challenges? Where does our strength lie? How does it all work?
This is kind of a situation that we have already faced when we are talking about the cryo engine development. That time also, we faced some issues while getting our hands on the technology, but then that was kind of a blessing in disguise because we did it on our own, and right now we have a very successfully flying cryo engine with us on LVM-3, the launch vehicle that took the Chandrayaan-3. So I will see this as a challenge, but then this challenge is going to give us very fruitful results. See, this technology, if we talk about USA or erstwhile Soviets, USSR, if we talk about them, they have done a lot of work on this particular technology in 1960s when the space war started during the Cold War era. So they have everything, and getting our hands on the technology because we were believing that the fraternity will come forward and they will help us in developing these technologies because they are very crucial for the human space flight programs because the life of the astronauts or the cosmonauts depends on it. If we are sending someone in this space in that hostile environment, very harsh environment of the space, so we have to have this thing. So India was expecting that hands will come forward for the contribution, but fine if it is not coming. So we can look at it in a other perspective that as we have done it for the Chandrayaan-2 to Chandrayaan-3, similarly we will do it for ECLSS. Now I like to bring some important aspects about ECLSS in the discussion. That is, what right now India needs is not the bigger picture of the ECLSS. Right now we need for the crew cabin. Right now, for the Gaganyaan mission, we will be starting with what they have done for the Mercury, Gemini, what NASA has done for Mercury and Gemini missions, what Soviets have done for Vostok and Vauxhall, and their Soyuz missions. Like what they did in 1960s, that's what is required right now. What SpaceX is doing for their Dragon capsule, which takes the astronaut into the orbit in the space. And the bigger ECLS system will be required for our Bharatiya Antariksh Station, and we still have time for that because that is something that is planned for 2035. But right now, on our hands right now is Gaganyaan. For that, we'll need the crew cabin ECLS system. Their requirements are still very stringent. The space standards that have been set up are very, very stringent. We have to take care of everything. So what happens in ECLS is we will be carrying our own oxygen. We will be carrying our own water on board. Because the crew stuff does not generate that thing through the electrolysis or the hydrolysis of water. We carry the sufficient amount. There is a calculated amount how much we have to carry, how much pressure we have to maintain, and the wastes that are generated, whatever it is, human waste or the perspiration, the sweat, and anything that is generated, that is, or the different waste that humans generate, everything will be simply vented out. They will be collected and vented out. So what NASA has done previously, even in their Apollo mission when they have taken the astronauts on the moon, what they have done is they have carried with them the sufficient amount of oxygen, and they have generated water through the fuel cell. Now, fuel cell is something that generates electricity and produces water as a waste. What USSR has done, Soviets have done in the past in their Soyuz cabin crew ECLSS, what they have done is they have generated chemically the oxygen but carried water with them. So ISRO will be playing with those possible technologies that we have, and we will be coming out with something that will be very efficient,
Okay.
as we are known for that.
Well, fingers crossed, we hope, and of course, a billion prayers with ISRO as we try and achieve that milestone. But Pranav, this has happened time and again with India. Each time we try and achieve something in our space exploration, there is somebody who is not very happy with it, who doesn't want to help. We've seen that in the past where countries have not shared, have refused to share technology with India this time around as well, with the ISRO chairperson saying that, we had discussions, but countries are refusing to share that technology with us, and therefore we're going ahead and building our own system. Uh, you know, this clearly reflecting that divide which still exists despite all the talks of the world going together and space exploration being a sector where countries need to come together, clearly reflecting the kind of divide and competition that the West feels from India.
I completely agree because the West is not able to digest the fact that the world has shifted from a bipolar world to a multipolar world. I mean, in the 60s, when the space age actually began, it was either US or Russia. And after that, there's several players have come in, and India has emerged as a major competitor, as a major country which can lead us into a new space millennium. And it's always safe to say that the West is not able to digest that. Absolutely not. Because our people are more efficient, it's cost effective, and they're more indigenous. They know to work around. There was a very interesting article in '82 when the very famous picture. You remember the satellite on a bullock cart was published by Washington Post. I think it was. Yeah, well,
This
so
is a
what
cartoon
the
that we're
particular
playing on the
gentleman had
screens
said
also.
was
Yeah.
that it's a very interesting. Oh yeah, so it's a very interesting feat for a country which uses its major mode of transportation as a bullock cart. Excuse me. Those are the kind of statements that were made. Now
Yeah.
those countries, from west to far east, every country wants to collaborate with India because we produce effective solutions. And you're right that the system has changed, but the countries who are used to holding that kind of power over technological advancement, over scientific IPs, are not able to digest the fact that here are these new people which know science which understood science much faster than we did. And that's what the entire motto of ISRO was, to leapfrog into progress, and we did. And past couple of years, and I think ISRO has set it, and another example in how wonderfully Indians can actually deliver things in very short span of time. And I know Dr. Somnath particularly well, and I know he's an extremely fine gentleman. And when he's saying that that we will develop the environmental control and life support system, I assure you that we will.
Yeah.
Because ISRO has a legacy of getting things done. And this time, I assure you that we are not going to fail.
Okay, absolutely. Well, Manish,
Amid the
let me
midst
also
of
then
the Cold
ask you,
War, we were
we've
able to
been,
send out sounding rockets.
yeah, yeah. So we have that trust, of course, in our space agency. Manish, quickly then let me also ask you, we've been talking about Gaganyaan and there's a lot of excitement about India's first manned mission, but help us understand what stage this particular mission might be at right now, if you have to simplify for our viewers. What is it that ISRO might be doing right now in that run up to the launch of Gaganyaan?
See, Gaganyaan mission is all about sending humans in space, and they will orbit around the Earth for a certain duration of time, and they have to come back. So, if we look at different stages, so first one is the launch vehicle. So we have done the human rating qualification of our launch vehicle, but we have not yet flown it. So there has to be a flight which will be a complete setup of LVM3 with the human rating. So the whole setup that has already been qualified for taking humans to the space has to take place, first thing. Before that, we have to get the complete understanding of the crew escape system and abort scenarios, because there are so many things that can go wrong. If you recall, recently we did one, yes, the one that is being shown on the screen, this particular test we have done recently, which was for the crew escape module. When if something goes wrong with the launch vehicle, so we'll just take the crew out of it and land them somewhere safely in the sea. But then still there are different modes of failure in this particular aspect of launch. So we have to test all those aspects. So qualifications have been done. Now we are in the testing phase. So we have to test different phases. For the crew escape, there will be 3 to 4 more tests that will be done for the crew escape system. Then we have to test our launch vehicle. Our launch vehicle with our humanoid in it, because we'll be measuring different parameters when we are launching someone. Then what are the different parameters in the crew cabin? We were expecting that ECLSS will come from some of the friends in abroad, but then it didn't happen. So that has put up a big, blank in the progress chart. So that has to be filled very fast, because without ECLSS we can't think of sending humans to this space. So Gaganyaan, the most crucial aspect of Gaganyaan right now is ECLSS, which supports the life, which is a life support system for the astronauts. So on the part of launch vehicle, on the part of crew escape system, everything was well planned, expecting that ECLSS will come our way. But since right now ECLSS has to be developed by ISRO indigenously, so I think little on the back foot right now we are, because now we have to meet the deadlines. So we are on a
Hmm.
little back foot, because we have to get that ECLSS thing done, and it's not just simply doing it. It has to be developed, it has to be tested, it has to be qualified, it has to be taken to the orbit for the qualification, and then only humans can sit in it and go. So this is going to take time. So right now, I think right now in
Hmm.
ISRO, overtime will be, scientists will be doing overtime, and they will be going extra, they will be putting in extra efforts to meet the deadline. But things have taken a little back foot
And
because
and
of that
Manish,
ECLSS scenario. Yeah.
Manish, ISRO is also planning to launch female robot Vyom Mitra before sending the actual astronauts. How much of that actually helps? What happens during that stage? And are we going to build that life support system before we launch Vyom Mitra or after? Just simplify for us.
See, actually, Vyomitra, we are sending Vyomitra because we want to check the different aspects in the flight, what happens to the different scenarios like the pressure, the cabin pressure, the air quality, how the pressure drops, how the temperature scenarios, things happen, what are the vibration loads. Because if a human being is sitting in that particular chamber, and then when the launch vehicle is taking off, huge gravitational loads come in, because launch vehicle is accelerating at a very faster acceleration, and acceleration keeps on increasing. It goes to 456 g, means 456 times the acceleration due to gravity. So how those loads affect the whole scenario, how this is, how much robust the system is to sustain all those things. So previously different systems were checked by sending either a mice or some other animals. But India has taken a decision that we are not going to put any other animal or any other, we are not going to put a guinea pig in it for the experimental uh, uh, process. Rather, we are going to put our Vyomitra humanoid, and we are going to measure all those critical aspects, all those critical values with the Vyomitra. And now, when we are talking about the critical values, then obviously that crew cabin has to have
Yeah.
its ECLSS in place, because then only we can measure all those particular values,
Okay.
like how much what is the oxygen level in it, how much the air pressure it is, how good we are uh, how good we are at handling the
All
thermal
right.
systems.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it there. Manish Purohit and Pranav Sharma, thank you very much to both of you for joining us tonight and sharing your perspective. Hopefully, we'll be able to overcome the challenges that we are facing in our space narrative and achieve the targets that we have set for ourselves. Thank you very much to both of you. All right, with that, we're going to be slipping into a short break. News and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned to Mirror Now.